All right, welcome everybody. I have Fredrik here. Do you go by Fred or Fredrik? What should I call you?
Fred is perfect. It's a little shorter.
Oh yeah, it is shorter and it's easier to say. So we're gonna work on a little bit of your game, give you a lesson and everything, show some key points, show some OPTIMOTION, show some cool stuff, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
And check up on the game. So what's been happening with your game?
So lately, I'm turned into a professional caddy.
Okay.
So I haven't played much. Hannah's taking the professional tour role in the relationship, but I did play a couple of smaller tournaments in Sweden, and I have been playing really well.
Oh,
so,
nice.
So the game is definitely trending. There are a couple of things in my swing that I always struggle with.
Okay.
So
yeah, you mentioned a little bit of just trying to get a little bit more closure of the turns from pretty much address to backswing, and then also opening the turns was a concern for yours on the downswing. Right?
Yeah, I've always been very lateral. So, and now I'm trying to become a little bit more rotational, because in the backswing, kind of my hips always moved kind of this way instead of rotating. So what happened was, I move lateral, I get super picky, and then I try to shallow it out by pushing my hips towards the target to get the hands down, and then I get extremely flippy. So now I'm trying to get better rotation to get the club in a better, more on-plane position, and then from there use the lower body and the rotation to get the clubs more down on plane, so I don't get as stuck in the downswing pretty much. Yeah,
you said something really good right there, which a lot of golfers actually struggle with, is that they don't close the turns enough from the address to the backswing. So you're left with a hand path that's just too far outward, especially starting the downswing. And then what do is that they all stop their turns, they stop the handle and go into a move, whether it be bending backwards, rightward tilting, just to shallow the club and get a usable hit.
Exactly.
And then it results into a shot that you don't know what's coming next.
No.
Right? So,
and the body stalls and the club just kind of flips. So,
Exactly, and that can be pretty common for anybody that stands up, or they describe it as that, but bending backwards, rightward tilting, again, all those good stuff. So, but I do need to get a pattern for you. So let's go ahead and hit a couple of shots, take a look at the swing and just kind of see what's going on.
Perfect.
All right.
I feel like that's kind of a typical miss.
Perfect.
Use a slight overhook.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, club path about 2.5. The face of path being closed about 3. So yeah, that shot's gonna start straighter than curve left.
Yeah.
Now, one big concern that you brought up to me, Fred, was just kind of what your trail hip is doing. So what we got here, and kind of showcase this on the previous lesson, is just I want to track that right hip. Okay. So if you're not closing your turns enough, that means you're going to be swaying. You told me you're kind of getting a little bit more lateral, and said you want to be more rotational within your swing. If you're more rotational, that trail hip is going to go more towards the target. Thus, your sways are going to be more towards, and also your turns are going to be more closed. Anytime that you sway away with your hip or shoulders of that sort, you're also not going to be closed as much as the tour average, and you're going to be resulted into a hand path that is too far outward. So I want to take a look at that first. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we're just going to put that key point right on your trail hip. So we have the hip turn brought out, and we also have some hip sway brought out. Okay, so hip sway is just the measurement of towards and away from pretty much your center of pelvis relative to the target.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's watch where the hip goes. So from the address position to pretty much your takeaway, our tour average form, and you can see just how much it did move from where you were at address. So address, it was labeling you off at 0.
Yep.
And then you moved almost a full 6 inches, it looks like exact 6 inches away from the target. So our tour average form is 0.3 inches away. So if I see a little bit of movement away, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I would like to see a little bit less from you, especially with what you were describing already. And as I was mentioning of this position here, you kind of alluded to it anyways, we're gonna see a red number with that 6 degrees closed. You start at 4 degrees, or yellow, you start at 4 degrees open, and then we close them to 18 degrees close during the backswing with what the hips do. So you're gonna see both those numbers being yellow, but let's see if we just catch it up in kind of where the lead arm is parallel to the ground, right about here. Now here's the issue that I see a lot. you got a really good swing, but I see what you're talking about because you move from 0.6 inches away, so back to this side of the screen, apologies, to now 0.8 inches away.
Yeah, so keep going that way, right?
That's a problem.
Because I see a lot of good golfers, they kind of go a little bit towards the target here, but then when the arm gets to just parallel or just past, they start already moving towards the target, going back.
Yeah, and that's actually...
And I'm just kind of staying there, right?
You're exactly right. The best players in the world are going to start moving their hips more towards the target, starting from that second position, so club being parallel to the ground.
Yeah.
Starting from there, their hips never venture away from the target ever again.
Yeah.
They continue moving more towards. Now, is this a way to combat, say, too much inside to out? It can be. But also, for the sake of what you're doing, is that your path is a little bit too straight with a face that is closed.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, resulting into these left shots. So if we can move that path and shift that path just a smidge more right, which means if we can get the hips moving more towards and then also the hips being more closed, that can result into that inward hand path that we were talking about in the previous lesson.
Yeah.
So that would be a really good route because I should start to see the tracking start to move more towards the target. And by the time that you get up to the top of your swing, you should be with that hip sway. So right about there is your top. You're still away from the target.
Yeah. Okay, but the hip is at least turned, but it's not swayed. Oh, yeah.
You did see the sways move more towards, right?
Yeah.
From right about the top of your swing.
Yeah.
You pretty much completed the top of your swing right about there. So they are going to move more towards, which is good.
Yeah.
But you're going to be resulted into a path, as you were already talking about. You're into a position with your hands, which is too far outward. So if we can get this purple line to be more towards the target, a little bit easy or a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, so it marks you kind of where you were during the backswing in yellow, and then when it transitions to the downswing, it's now purple or pink. Okay, and that would be super useful for getting you that path that's a little bit more rightward, so that closed face to path will at least be useful to you and not hurting you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want you to do, you already kind of know what to do, but let's go ahead and set up to the ball. Okay, perfect. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to try to get your tailbone over your left heel as much as you possibly can. There you go.
So this way?
Yep, so even more. Good, now do it one more time for me. I'm just gonna go ahead and record that. Good. Okay, now let's check just where that tracking went from the address position with that right hip all the way to that takeaway. So, moves a little away, that's okay to start, but now it should move more towards. So you see that transition of our little key point here? After right here, that should be moving more towards to where you started. Let's double check that. There you go. Now, let's check out that previous swing that you had. So moves off the ball, sways too much away from the target, so less of a line that we have with the tracking. Continue to move that to right about where the lead humerus is parallel to the ground. Should be moving more towards the target. And that's the pattern that we're seeing with that key point now.
Much better. Yeah, 100%. Then I don't get so much fold in my left arm either because I kind of feel like the limits the turn, and then I have to kind of like fold the left arm to kind of finish my backswing instead of just turning. So it's kind of like my way of, oh, I want a little longer swing, so I just bend it. It's because I feel like I don't have enough range of motion to keep my left arm straight and actually finish my turn.
Well, yeah, if you ever want to move the handle, use your body, for sure. Because once you stop using your body, kind of as we saw in that very first swing, you're going to separate the elbow span.
Yeah.
You're going to start bending the elbows just to get the club to continue moving back.
Fake turn.
The fake turn,
Faking
exactly. Yep, exactly. So if we even looked, obviously with the sway, this is in a completely different ballpark now. So you have 0.8 inches away where you were about the lead humerus being parallel to the ground to now 0.9 inches towards.
Yep.
There's a blue position
Huge
as opposed to a
difference,
yellow position.
Yeah.
That would at least benefit kind of what we were talking about. Plus, you already reached your hip turn for what you accomplished on the top of your swing. Yeah, exactly. Again, those two numbers will go together, the sway and the turns.
Yeah.
The more you're going towards the target, it's going to encourage more closure of the hips. So that's going to be a really good thing for you. Now, like I said, all I said was try to move, you can even think about that key point too. Just try to move that key point towards the net as much as you can.
Yeah.
And we'll do these kind of little swings. We'll go to about your lead arm being parallel to the ground.
Okay.
And just see if you can move the hip more towards the target. There you go. Nice. Okay, let's check out that one. So hip sway is out. Also, we want to bring out some hip turn, and I believe I already have those guys out there. There you go. Cool, so I can put that guy away. All right, thought is just try to move that key point towards the target as much as you can.
Yeah.
So you started, like I said, with a little bit of away movement, which is fine, but now the hips are starting to move more towards the target, even from that second position.
Yep.
So that is a blue and green position there, but as you continue moving, keep those hips moving towards the target and look how much more turn you have.
Yeah, it's much better. Sure.
A ton. So you're 1.5 inches towards the target with the hips, fantastic, and a hip turn of 45 degrees close. 44 is our tour average. And to kind of give you an example or an idea of where the hip sway should be, it should be at 0.3 inches towards the target for the best players in the world.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit more with this field, right?
Which is just fine for a field.
For a field, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because by the time you were at the top of your swing on your previous swing, it was still at 0.2 inches away from the target.
Yeah.
And that's going to limit a lot of what the closure of the hips can do. You can even see going up to the top of the swing, we only saw 43 degrees close as the max closure with our hips, and you can see that you got to 50.
Yeah.
That will help out with an inward hand path. If you can get the hands to where they are right there, this is fantastic to see because it needs to be about 3 inches behind that trail shoulder.
Okay, cool.
There's your tour average hand path that'll encourage more of a 4-degree in-out path.
Sweet.
If you hit 4-degree into out, there's your tour average club path in the first place, and now your 2 degrees close isn't going to cost you the left miss anymore. It's going to bring it back to target.
Let me hit a full one. This is a great feel, actually. I really like that. So, it's a completely different feel off the ball, but I feel a lot freer. I feel like the body wants to turn instead of me kind of having to fight in the second half of the swing.
Yeah, so tailbone over the left heel. Think about the key point moving more towards my net.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at that hip. Where does that right hip go?
Work.
Like I said, we're okay with a little.
Yeah.
All right, with that very first start of the swing, it's supposed to move about 0.3 inches away from the target anyways.
Yeah.
But from there, look at where the key point's moving.
More it's kind of just staying there, okay.
So
it's better.
It's staying there, but let's take a look at just what is supported here. Fantastic. This is kind of what I was looking for.
Oh yeah.
As I was mentioning, when we're doing a lot of the exaggeration, you're 1.5 inches towards the target with the hips, and if I'm looking for somebody that's to be around the tour average and the caliber that you want to be, being green is a good thing for you. So 0.3 inches towards being our tour average form right there, fantastic. You're at 0.4 inches towards. So not seeing a ton of movement with your hip right here is fantastic. Go back to even the first swing that we had with what the hip was doing was a lot more motion. So going back and just look at the line that was drawn by our tracking system with our key points. So there's the difference.
Yeah.
Where's my hip sway? Of course it's not gonna come out, but it's 0.6 inches away right there as opposed to 0.4 inches towards. So that's a good 10 inches improvement there.
I mean, that just feels, I feel so restricted in the beginning compared to now. It's quite interesting when you think about, I need to turn better in the backswing. Most people are just thinking about the shoulder rotation, right? But it all kind of starts from the lower body. Especially, I have kind of bad T-spine mobility in all my tests with TPI and other other trainers. So if I'm not using the hips and everything, there's no way I'm getting to a good shoulder turn. So, you know, it's kind of the old way, like the old school way with the X factor, where you're supposed to not turn the hips and just turn your upper body. Not many people can handle that.
Oh, it's so hard to swing that way, isn't it? And especially if you're allowing the hips to close, as you're saying, the shoulders just do a whole lot more now, don't they? They have more motion, as you're kind of mentioning
100%.
from what your issues are. So keeping that key point more towards the target, fantastic. That'll result into a path that's a little bit straighter or a little bit more to the right, so you can close that face and it'll actually go to the target and not necessarily miss left all the time.
That's a great shot there.
Oh, that's fantastic right
That's
there.
just kind of my stock draw. So aim a little right, kind of straight, draws a little bit,
Well,
and then,
absolutely. Well, next time we'll work on the face of path, but that's a really good start with the path.
That's great. Thanks a million, man. I'm gonna take this field with me for sure. Got a couple of months now, kind of off season for me. So, but that was massive. Super cool that you can see and get the direct feedback here, because how do you see really on video if you're not looking at 3D? Like a slight few inches with a hip turn is hard to see with just camera instead of this system. So
we were measuring to 10 inches there.
Exactly.
From what we were just looking at on your before swing to your after swing. So that's a huge improvement. Keep
Yeah.
that key point moving more towards, and good luck with your caddy career.
I might need one of those soon. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.